Kansas.
Between a historic second impeachment and a presidential inauguration days away, security continues to intensify around the Capitol. I'm Natalie Brand with why law enforcement is concerned about new threats.
And experts arrive in Wuhan, China to investigate the origin of the coronavirus.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
The Crawford County Sheriff and the Kansas Bureau of Investigation are searching for a person of interest in connection to an overnight death investigation. This is KOAM News at Noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Topping our first 7 minutes, a death investigation underway in Arcadia, Kansas. The KBI and the Crawford County Sheriff set up a command post near East Vine and South Ohio Streets in Arcadia early this morning. Now, authorities have not yet released any details of the case, just that it is a death investigation. They are looking for a person of interest who may have the answers they need, and that's this man, 37-year-old Nicholas Carrillo. He was last seen just before midnight leaving a residence at 111 South Kansas on foot, wearing black sweatpants and a white tank top. He's described as 6'1" and 275 pounds. Sheriff Danny Smith says it's important to find him.
For us, it's been very pressing for us to find this individual because we're investigating a death right now, and we have no idea what the circumstances are, what this person's state of mind is, and so you just can't take it lightly.
If you see Nicholas Carrillo or have information related to his whereabouts, please call the KBI at 1-800-KS-CRIME or the Crawford County Sheriff's Office. Authorities in Jasper County are searching for a vehicle they say is tied to a homicide that took place Wednesday evening in Sarcoxie. Shortly before 9 p.m., deputies responded to an unknown medical call on the 2700 block of High Street. That's where they found 46-year-old Becky Sanders dead in the home. Now, this is a photo of a vehicle similar to the one in question. It's a gray 2015 Subaru Legacy. It has Missouri plates with the number VB1YOE. Now, if you see this car, contact law enforcement immediately. Well, the cold weather is back. Michael Hayslip joins us with a first look at the forecast.
And we're still holding on to just a skosh of rain on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri. But believe it or not, Tanya, out to the west, as a matter of fact, outside the mothership, we're starting to see a little blue sky coming out. It's just a matter of getting rid of our morning precip. So there's where we are on the Skywatch Storm Tracker currently. Go ahead and remove that cloud cover just so we can concentrate on some heavier rain just on the south side of I-44. Hasn't really amounted to anything. Now I want to throw on our watch boxes and our fills because, oh, look at this. We got a combo on our hands. Number 1 in the tan. That's a wind advisory. Number 2, I know this sounds a little bit odd because we just talked about rain. That's a red flag warning in southeast Kansas. Means we have elevated fire conditions, and reason being because that wind just keeps on barreling in. And even though it shifted, as Tanya alluded to, and ushers in our cold front as we take a look from the Freeman Health System sky camera, it is not going to calm down. We're actually lucky right there. Last one I looked at out of Joplin Regional was about 21 miles per hour. But I'll tell you what that means too. When you get that little calm of the wind, that means that front's about to drop in on you. I noticed it earlier today here at the station. It got real still, and then it just picked up from the northwest. So as we get some sunshine during the afternoon hours and say goodbye to the rain, let's go ahead and concentrate on Friday because, yeah, here comes a little snow associated with that winter storm for the upper plains. Certainly not going to affect us like it will places like even northern Missouri, that close. But yep, we're going to pick up some snow coming here in just a little bit. We'll talk about accumulation numbers, kind of break down our travel impacts, and then take us into a weekend. Maybe we should check out and see what Arrowhead Stadium is going to be like for the Chiefs and Browns.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Thanks, Michael. Well, President Trump has become the first president to ever be impeached twice. The impeachment proceedings now move to the Senate for a trial. But that won't happen until after President Trump leaves office. Natalie Brand is on Capitol Hill with those details and what is being done to keep the Capitol safe ahead of next week's presidential inauguration.
On this vote, the ayes are 232, The nays are 197.
It was the most bipartisan presidential impeachment vote in modern history, with 10 House Republicans joining their Democratic colleagues.
Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to our country.
A Senate trial is not expected until after next week's inauguration, and 17 Republicans would need to join with every Democrat in order to convict the president of inciting an insurrection. In a letter to his GOP colleagues Wednesday, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said, "I have not made a final decision on how I will vote, and I intend to listen to the legal arguments when they are presented to the Senate." But others in his party remain firmly against convicting the president.
Let's stand up for the idea that post-presidential impeachments are bad for the presidency, bad for the country, and if we go along with it as Republicans, we will destroy the Republican Party.
Within the past 24 hours, new fencing has gone up to reinforce the security perimeter around the Capitol. Up to 20,000 National Guard troops are expected in Washington, D.C. ahead of the inauguration, some of them armed. In a video released last night, President Trump made no mention of his second impeachment, but instead warned against more riots.
No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag.
CBS News has learned of a new law enforcement bulletin warning that the success of last week's breach is likely to fuel more violence among domestic extremist groups. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Throughout Washington, D.C., businesses have begun boarding up their windows ahead of next week's inauguration. The FAA now says it will start taking legal action against passengers who refuse to wear masks. More than 2,700 passengers have now been banned from U.S. airlines for refusal to wear masks. Dozens were added in the wake of the Capitol riot. Alaska Airlines released a statement referring to passengers flying to D.C. last week as rowdy and argumentative. Officials at health departments in southeast Kansas released plans for phase 2 distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine. Cherokee County health officials took to Facebook explaining their plans, which include setting up a special telephone number for people to call for appointments. Crawford County officials tell us they're still in the early stages of planning.
We are in the planning phases, and we have been communicating and working with our county partners. And, looking at the logistics of things, trying to select pod sites. And so we're working pretty hard on it.
Southeast Kansas Multi-County Health Department, which includes Allen, Anderson, Bourbon, and Woodson counties, has also announced their initial plans for phase 2 distribution. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, a team of experts at the World Health Organization arrives in Wuhan to investigate the origins of COVID-19. And later, we're making better buttermilk biscuits in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. Experts from the World Health Organization have arrived in Wuhan for a long-awaited investigation into the origins of COVID-19. It comes more than a year after the virus emerged in the Chinese city. CBS's Tina Kraus reports.
A team of scientists moved through a quarantine tunnel at Wuhan's airport, headed to a hotel in the Chinese city where COVID-19 was first detected more than a year ago. This man says it took them long enough, but better late than never. Another says it doesn't matter when they come as long as they find the truth. Investigators from the World Health Organization want to know how the virus, which experts believe came from a live market, jumped from animals to people. But getting answers won't be easy, with China waging a campaign to cast doubt on the origins. The U.S. accuses officials of hiding the extent of the initial outbreak.
This is about science. Let's leave the politics out of it. This is not about finding someone to blame. This is about understanding what happened.
One possible focus is the lab at Wuhan Institute of Virology, but the WHO is not planning to look into whether there might have been an accidental release of the coronavirus, as some U.S. politicians, including President Trump, have claimed. A government spokesman said researchers will exchange views with Chinese scientists, but gave no indication if they'll be allowed to gather evidence.
It could be a very long journey before we get a full understanding of what happens.
The concern is the probe will be more symbolic than substantial. Tina Kraus, CBS News.
China today reported its first death from COVID-19 in 8 months as the country battles to contain a resurgence in cases in the Northeast. Still to come on the KOAM News at Noon, Mr. Food.
I show you how to cut. And the funny thing is, we're not using a knife. Stick around and I'll show you what I mean.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
Sometimes I like to refer to Miss Mother Nature as a fickle mistress. It feels like today that if she had a bag of tricks that she kept by her side, she is unloading the bag upon us, because we're going to talk about everything from rain to elevated fire conditions to temperatures that were in the 50s earlier this week to snow to finish off our week. Here's where we sit on the current Skywatch Storm Tracker. What's left of the rain hitting eastern edge of southwest Missouri right there. Coming down pretty good there around the Monette area, south of I-44. Trace it back to the east, just around Joplin. But now you'll notice we're clearing off to the west. And so we've got blue sky and sunshine out on this side, and this front bringing us extremely dry air as it pushes all the rain out to the east. From the Freeman Health System sky camera in Joplin, looks like the parking lot's already dried up, to be honest with you. 43 degrees, not a whole lot of movement in the temperature from where we were pre-sunrise to where we'll finish off the day, with a wind chill right now of 39. Wind has been very fortunate. That humidity, that thing's going to bottom out. It's going to bottom out fast. 46 in Pittsburgh, 45 in Welch. Let's roll 42 right now in Nevada. Of course, a big talker from this morning, it was the wind. They had gusts as high as 60 miles an hour in Wichita that took down some power lines. No 4-state storm reports for us regarding the winds, but now we've got pretty much the complete shift as everything comes in off of the northwest with that associated cold front. And remember, these aren't gust numbers. These are sustained numbers that we're seeing right there. So it's going to gust close to 40 miles an hour here a little bit later. That's why we've got the wind advisories. That's indicated in tan. Now you go, okay, what do we got in the red? Well, quick reminder, that's a red flag warning. That means we've got elevated fire concerns. So while we still got rain on this portion of the 4 states, we've got fire hazards over here because that front with the wind shift is going to be extremely dry for the rest of the day. Then you see the pink, that's going to be a high wind warning. This thing stretches as far as the wind threat goes from Texas all the way to the Canadian border. And then we look at the purple and the white. Yep. Winter storm warning. This thing's going to be a little interesting here because instead of it following the trough of the jet stream east, the jet stream's going to stall out a little bit, and so this thing's going to make a counterclockwise motion. We find ourselves on the far southern band, and because our temperatures coming off of those 50 degrees days that we had earlier this week, we get to keep it as rain for the time being. But as this thing turns over on itself tomorrow morning, that's when we're going to end up getting some snow. We'll start as flurries early in the morning, and then by the time we get into, say, the noon hour, that's when we see it begin to actually make a nice southerly push. Now, the majority of our accumulation, you get out here, you're probably not even going to see any snow. Get into here, central Missouri, they could get 2.5, almost 3 inches the farther north that you go. We'll get a dusting up in here. And as you work on that eastern portion of southwest Missouri, could get about 3/4 of an inch of snow as it continues to come down, as it makes that counterclockwise motion and slowly pushes off to the east. Not really thinking it's going to hamper our morning travel concerns, but you can tell if it lasts all the way into Friday evening. Let's be very careful on the Friday ride home. Should be okay on Saturday there. And as far as what we were talking about with Kansas City, Arrowhead Stadium with the Browns and Chiefs, while that snow is going to roll through on Friday and Saturday, by the time they get to Sunday, weather is not really going to play a factor as far as the game goes. Yeah, it's going to be cold, 2 cold weather teams, not going to make a huge difference. Probably have some snow that you'll see sitting on the sidelines and whatnot, but you know, you're not going to be one of those good old-fashioned Green Bay weather makers. Saturday should present itself as light scattered rain. Then Sunday morning, Tanya, comes early enough, spit out just a little bit of snow there, but should be done by the afternoon.
All right. Got a lot going on in the forecast.
I told you,
Be
bag
prepared.
of tricks. Oh, you weren't in here when I talked about it. If she had a bag of tricks, she is emptying them out.
A little bit of everything.
why she is my fickle mistress.
There you go. All right, thanks, Michael. We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Sergeant Danny Thompson in the U.S. Air Force. He fought in Southeast Asia and in Vietnam from 1968 to 1971 with the 17th Special Operations Squadron. The Chinook, Kansas native received both the Distinguished Flying Cross and the Presidential Unit Citation. To Sergeant Danny Thompson, we thank you, our four-state hero. Well, there's nothing better than freshly baked biscuits, especially when they're baked with love. Howard shows us how to make his better buttermilk biscuits in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
If you're like me, it's almost impossible to eat soup, chili, or stew without having some kind of bread to dunk in them. And nothing is better than freshly baked biscuits. That way, we can get every last drop. To make them, we start by mixing some flour with baking powder and baking soda, a bit of salt, and a little sugar. After it's mixed, we cut in some shortening and cold butter. If you've never cut shortening or butter into dry ingredients, you do it with a pastry cutter, like this one, or you can use a couple of forks. The idea is to create a coarse crumb mixture, so you end up with biscuits that are super flaky. Now we stir in some buttermilk and mix this until the dough is moist. We roll this out until it's about a ½ inch thick, and with a biscuit cutter or drinking glass, we cut out circles and put them on a tray and bake them off. That's it. In minutes, when they're golden, they're ready to serve. Sure, we can slather them with butter or eat them as is, but I think they're best when they're dunked in any of our comforting favorites. To get the recipe for our better buttermilk biscuits, all you have to do is visit our website. I'm Howard of the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found the ultimate dunking way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
Looks good. Here's a look at our four-state market prices.
Afternoon sunshine, so let's push into Friday, and that's when the snow arrives in the morning, really kind of makes its way all the way through the noon hour, especially on the eastern portion of the four states, and cool temperatures as we head into a football weekend. Temperatures in the 40s on both Saturday and Sunday. Now over to Dow with a look at what's coming up tonight at 5.
A lot at 5 coming up. More than 2 million Americans rely on wheelchairs to get around, but every year more than 100,000 are injured in wheelchair-related accidents. We're going to meet a father who decided to reinvent the wheelchair to keep his daughter safe. Plus, more information is going to be released today about Missouri's COVID vaccine Phase 1B distribution plan. And of course, we're going to have more on the Sarcoxy homicide investigation. Hope you'll join us for those stories. A lot more KOAM News at 5.
All right, thank you, Dow. Thanks for joining us for KOAM News at Noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.